Hello YouTube. I wanted to do one of those pagan video challenges, and so the first one that I felt compelled to do is a quick tour of my altar space. So it's a little messy right now. This is actually my primary altar space. I tend to kind of use different parts of the house as other minor altar places, but this is the main one. So on my altar space here and near it, I have a number of things that I have made or that I've found or that I'm working on or that have been given to me. Things that I've made would include things like apple candles that are made from reclaimed wax from a Catholic church candle I actually found at a thrift store, which is pretty cool. My altar is divided into two primary sections here. I have my physical ancestors on one side, which has got my amazing badass great grandma there in the back. That's Granny. She's definitely one of the family guardian spirits. Just strong. I mean, whenever anybody in the family is in trouble, Granny comes through, man. She's just like roar. I mean, this is a woman who like built rock walls until she was like 79. You know, she's muscly until the end. She is a badass. And she's a badass on the spiritual plane, too. And she was when she was alive as well, because she would do things like banishings and exorcisms and stuff like that. So she, of course, is very well respected on the altar here. I also have a picture of my friend Randy from my wedding here. My friend Randy recently passed away at the age of 34. He was working on a car, and the jack failed, and it crushed him. Absolutely just tragic. Left behind a wife and everything. But, you know, he's come through pretty strongly for both my wife and I since then, which is pretty cool. Seen him a lot in dreams and stuff like that. So he's, you know, he's not related to me by blood, but, I mean, we are definitely on the same frequency. So he's there, too. This funny little picture down here was made by my grandma, Ada Winklemeyer. She also is another incredibly badass lady. It may look like a really kind of a amateurish child's painting, but the funny thing about it is that she painted that when she was legally blind. The woman was an incredible, very talented painter because it was her passion. And when she got to the point where she was legally blind and she had a magnifying glass and glasses and probably a second magnifying glass just to see so that she could do paintings, she continued to paint, and that's one of her final pieces before she eventually passed away. But I think it speaks to her tenacity. I mean, she was another badass woman. She used to carry a pistol in her purse. You know, she was the bill collector for the family business. I mean, just not someone you'd want to fuck with. Very tough and very well respected on the altar here. We also have this one here, which is sort of a generic for the strong women in my family for the Valkyries in my family who I don't know the names of, but who doubtless are in my family lineage, considering that this is my mom's side of the family and this is my dad's side of the family. We've got them on both sides. So we've got kind of it's modeled after that whole Fallout 4 workshop thing, but I did it in a Patrick Nagel style because I really like Patrick Nagel a lot. Back here, we have a photo that is from a friend's wedding of my dad, who, thank goodness, is still with us, and my late stepmother, who just absolutely the most amazing woman. A waitress for like 20 years who owned her own restaurant before that with her then husband. And she just practically adopted every single child that, you know, needed a place to stay and something to eat in the town I grew up in. She just open door policy, food on the stove, food on the table, constantly. Just incredible woman. Worked her ass off at a shitty job she did not like, so that she could make life easier for all the children that needed a place to stay and food to eat in Tuolumne County. So just someone definitely who I felt needed to be honored. So that's my physical ancestors corner. I also have some other stuff here, like some jewelry that belonged to my grandfather, who was a total badass too. My Grandpa Duke, who I get my name from, actually. Now I've got a little bit of salt and paprika and some, I guess, magically infused fairy dust someone gave me, kind of like a little bit of an echo back to the Roman Lorarium idea. And then, it looks like I knocked over one of these here. I got Hugin and Mugen down here, which my wife gave me. The two ravens, a thought and memory, and I guess one of them you have to be worried about because he fell over, you know. So he didn't come back, but now he's back and now he's upright. So a little nod to the text there. The wolf is a candle that was apparently magically infused and given to me by my wife. On the other side over here, we have non-physical ancestors or patron spirits that I've worked with. I'm still working on building this section. Of course, you know, like I have giant pictures of Freya, you know, around the house. I'd have to give you a tour of the house, which I'm not willing to do at this point, to show you all of the giant pictures of Freya, because she's kind of my patron, my main one that I work with. But here we have representations that I felt were very fitting of Njord, who I just absolutely adore working with, and Njörthus over here. And, you know, and then down here we have Idun or Ithun, depending on your pronunciation, kind of like a representation of her. And then there was a period where I felt like I really needed some Loki in my life to kind of break things up, because things were a little bit stagnant, and unfortunately that wasn't very long after that I went through a divorce. But the good thing is that was a very toxic, horrible, abusive relationship that I needed to get out of, and he kind of gave me the push. He was one of the spirits who gave me the push. Freya actually also handed me off to this beautiful dark lady in the background here. This one down here, this is Ursuli Dantor, and she's not, of course, she's not, you know, Northern Path. She's not Heathen Path. There are connections that I've found linking her to, well, of course, you know, the image of her, of Ursuli Dantor, is the Polish Black Madonna. Let me pull her out so you can see her in her full glory. I don't like her being hidden back there, but I don't have a lot of room on this table. There we are. I drew this. This was a devotional piece of Ursuli Dantor. But she's modeled, the original version of Ursuli Dantor is modeled after the Polish Black Madonna, which of course was raised in the temples where Bellona, or Bellona, the Roman goddess of war, but specifically of like ecstatic combat and talent, was worshipped. It's ties to the Valkyrie Hildur, things like that. There's like a whole strain of energy moving that kind of culminates modernly in the Loa Ursuli Dantor. And, you know, before anyone screams cultural appropriation, let me just tell you, she chose me. I had dreams about Ursuli. Oh my goodness. You know, she came into my life in a time when I really needed to be chopped up and sent on my way, which is what she's good at. That's that free yourself of the scary shit, or not scary shit, free yourself of the stagnant shit kind of an energy. So I really respect her a whole lot. And so she, of course, is on my altar, and I need to get on getting some more folks on my altar. But I've had other priorities at the time, or lately. And of course, I've got a big candle. I always want to have a giant fuck off candle on my altar. And there's Kuan Yin up there. My mom gave me that, and then a mask that another friend gave me. My wife made me this wolf rune, which is here. It's wolf in looks like the Elder Futhark. It's not the wolf's angle, but which is good because that's from the 15th century. Anyways, I've got some turkey feathers back here that I've found while seeking out land spirits in the area. Sort of consider them to be gifts from the land spirits. So there's my giant candle again. I've got a smudge stick in it that I made out of like mugwort and such, local herbs. And then these two little chalices, which are handmade by somebody. I found them at a thrift store for a song. Just thought they were really neat, and they look good balanced there on the altar like that. And then, of course, now we get to some of the really cool stuff. We've got another one of those handmade apple candles over here, and then a bind rune stone here that was cut by a friend of mine. I should turn that right side up. There we go. And it was part of my mom's circle. My mom is Wiccan, and it's part of her circle in the backyard for the longest time. So when she moved, I took it with me, and I keep it on my altar as it reminds me both of that really amazing friend of mine, who is a coyote, actually, of all things, and also my mom, who's about 1,000 miles away, dealing with her own stuff in Washington, pursuing life in a really fun way. And actually, she's doing her own stuff in regards to pagan-y stuff too. So that's pretty cool. I also have this big blue thing back here you've probably seen, which is a shield. It's a shield that my Grandpa Duke, which I mentioned earlier, made for me out of wood and stuff like that. And it's been painted over, probably 4 or 5 times now. You can see it was well used when I was a kid. It has quite a bit of battle damage from hatchets and axes and God knows what else. And I decided with all the energy put into that thing, all the adventures I went on as a kid with that thing, I should just turn it into a ritual object, right? I mean, seriously, it definitely has that energy. Anyway, it's just a blank blue right now because I haven't painted the design on it yet, but I plan to, and when I do, I will probably do a video about what all the symbology on it is. So, and of course, because I'm a heathen, but kind of an eclectic pagan, I have your standard white sage smudge stick there, which I like to use once in a while, but I prefer, of course, mugwort, which is more in line with our ancestral traditions. And, I call her grandmother mugwort. She definitely speaks to me quite strongly. This is from my home county, Tuolumne County, Gold Country. So extra special there, I think. I have little things down here, little bits of jewelry, Thor's hammer, first Thor's hammer I ever got, and little Celtic knot, kind of differing sides of my ancestry. The Thor's hammer was one I bought, but the little Celtic knot was a gift from Alex, my wife. And then this thing was really cool. This is like the coolest bloat horn I've ever found, I think. It's ceramic, which is perfect for me because even though I've done animal processing, I've worked on a farm, I know what I'm doing. The idea of actually having like a real goat horn has always kind of been like, so here we go. I found this and I was like, not only does it have legs, so it sits up, it's a horn, right? It's ceramic and it says Old Germany on it, which is probably the most, in terms of ancestral stuff, it's probably the thing that I link to the most is the idea of like the old Germanic stuff, which is one of the reasons why I work with the elder Futhark over the younger Futhark. People say, oh, the Vikings used the younger Futhark. Yeah, well, I didn't have as much Vikings in my ancestry as I had the old Germany. I mean, like my family last names that really stand out are like Myers, Winkelmeyer, Kaiser, that kind of stuff. Real German, strong German names. Anyway, so that's a good part of my ancestry. Of course, there's Scottish, Celtic. Great Grandma Short was literally described in official records as a wild hill woman. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, bits from my past that were meaningful to me, like this little Eye of Ra. I was really into some of the Kemetic stuff when I was a lot younger, when I was sort of like doing my thing and exploring. I mean, I grew up halfway in a pagan household. My mom was pagan, my dad wasn't, and kind of went all over the place in terms of explorations. Finally settled on sort of Chaot, and then from Chaot went into the ancestral traditions. And I felt like that was for me, that was a necessary education to go from pagan, which is like all the stuff in the world is fair game, to Chaot, which is all the stuff in the world doesn't matter, to, heathenry, which is, all right, what did the ancestors do? That kind of thing. And of course, having that strong foundation of research and doing your own thing from there following your heart, as it says in the Havamal. Anyway, so this piece of obsidian here is a piece of obsidian that I found while hiking. Actually, I found a deposit while hiking, and I dug it up when I was 16, and I have only a few pieces of it left. I just thought they were the coolest thing ever. Coolest thing to find in the dirt, you know, just it looked like a bolus or something that was ejected from a volcano. And I was like, yeah, I dug it all up, put it in buckets and brought it home. So, and then, of course, you're probably all wondering what this is back here. This has been saving, you know, some of the best stuff for last. This beauty is my ritual casting implement. Now it's an antler. A lot of the stuff that I use in a ritual capacity is bone, not metal, because if you look at Tacitus, at least as reliable as he is, Nerthus or Njord, depending on how you look at it, had kind of a distaste for, well, all the swords were locked up, if I remember correctly, whenever the wagon came into town. So I kind of, and I work in law, so, you know, there's this whole notion of if you have ritual objects that you want to wear on you all the time and they're metal, you got to take them off every time you go in the freaking courthouse. So, you know, for me, a lot of it's been getting away from metal, getting back to more natural sources. It works also with my work with the Lawnvator, kind of rejecting some of the industrialized stuff. Anyway, so this is my Freyr wand that I made from an antler that I found at at a flea market of all places. Sanded it down, polished it up, cut runes into it with a Dremel tool. Did the handle, leather handle binding all myself with faux amber and beads and bone and stuff like that on there. So this thing has got an incredible energy. It doesn't really show up too well, I don't think, in the video, but you know, I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's pretty cool. So that's for ritual casting there. Oops, I got that turned the wrong way. Too focused on the camera, not focused enough on actually doing stuff with the altar here. All right, and then what else was there on here to show you? I guess probably just these. The big metal horn was a hood ornament I bought and installed on a car I had called the Blue Valkyrie years ago. I've hung on to it, and it seems kind of appropriate here. And of course, the sword is one that just, the moment I saw it, I used to sell swords for a living. The moment I saw it, it sung to me and said, "You need to take me home. I'm a ritual implement." And I was like, "You got it, buddy." And so between that and the shield over there, sort of, I don't know, I kind of felt like that was some good ritual gear. And so yeah, so that's a quick tour of my altar. Of course, it has drawers, and the drawers just contain things like, I've moved a bunch of stuff out of them last night. Candles that I've found at thrift stores that seemed appropriate as offering candles. And, you know, down here we've got some more stuff along those lines, and, you know, this is cool. You'll like this. My great-grandfather made this knife. I think it was part of like some kind of a hobby knife-making kit. But still, I mean, that was made, God, great-grandpa made this? It must be almost 100 years old. It's got this really cool pattern on the blade, too. So, ancestor relic. I'm really big into those. So, there you go. There is the official tour of my altar. Now, you go out there and do a tour of your ritual space, your altar space. And you can share it with the rest of us here on YouTube. And if you have any questions, of course, put them in the comments. And this is the first video I have ever made for YouTube along these lines. So forgive the quality, I hope. And hopefully it's not too quiet. And I'm thinking about setting up a Patreon page. I've got a lot of research I can pour into books. I have 71 books in print. Some of them are science fiction. Most of them are science fiction. But there's also experimental literature, some spirituality, poetry, that kind of stuff. So that's on www.thunderrune.com. There's also a bunch of articles on transgender subjects and that kind of thing, and links to all my books on my website, www.eswin.com. So if you want to check those out, and then I'll put a link to the Patreon in the description if I end up doing it. And then, of course, keep an eye out for books, articles, and future movies. Alrighty. Have a nice day. Bye.